Hong Kong reports its first H7N9 bird flu death. Shinzo Abe visits the Yasukuni Shrine. And the arrest in Thailand turns deadly. Good evening. An 80-year-old patient who was diagnosed with H7N9 bird flu earlier died today at Princess Margaret Hospital. The hospital authority says there's no need to raise the city's alert level for the time being because the death may not be directly related to H7N9 bird flu.
The elderly man was the second H7N9 bird flu patient in Hong Kong. The first was an Indonesian domestic helper. The 80-year-old Hong Kong man who lived in Shenzhen came to the territory earlier this month for treatment at Tuen Mun Hospital. He was then diagnosed with H7N9 and put in isolation at Princess Margaret Hospital. The man had also suffered from diabetes. It's not clear yet if the deadly bird flu virus caused his death. It is also not known where and how he had contracted the virus. Earlier this month, Secretary for Food and Health Ko Wing-man explained that the patient suffered from hearing problems, which made communication with medical staff difficult. Ko also said at the time that the Centre for Health Protection had not established if he had been in contact with live poultry. Hong Kong's flu pandemic preparedness plan was upgraded to serious earlier this month when the domestic worker from Indonesia was diagnosed with H7N9. She's still being treated at Queen Mary Hospital. Meanwhile, across the border, authorities have shut down 2 wet markets in Shenzhen's Longgang district after samples collected there tested positive for the deadly strain of the bird flu virus. A number of H7N9 patients on the mainland had visited the district.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe today angered his Asian neighbours by visiting the Yasukuni Shrine. As Alan Buckney reports, both China and South Korea object to the visit because the shrine honours 2.5 million war dead, including war criminals. Meanwhile, Diaoyu activists here in Hong Kong are pressing ahead with legal action to hold Japan responsible for a confrontation near the disputed islands last year. Diane To reports. Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan has reshuffled his cabinet after 3 key ministers resigned over a sweeping corruption scandal. In all, Erdogan replaced 10 ministers. The scandal poses the biggest challenge to his 11-year rule. The crisis erupted earlier this month when dozens of people, including the head of a state-run bank, were arrested on graft charges. The 3 ministers who resigned have sons among those detained. One of them, the environment minister, has now turned on Erdogan, saying the prime minister should resign too. The Turkish leader denounced the probe as baseless and responded by purging police investigators. Meanwhile, protests against the Erdogan government continued across Turkey. To the latest in Thailand's political crisis, a police officer was killed today in clashes between security forces and anti-government protesters in Bangkok. Nearly 100 people were injured. As a result, the Election Commission is urging the government to postpone February's snap elections, but Thailand's government says no. Here's Sonia Tero with more. A prominent Ukrainian civic activist and journalist has been brutally beaten outside the capital, Kiev. 34-year-old Tatiana Chernovil had just published an article on a posh suburban residence she claimed was being built for Ukraine's interior minister. A dashboard camera shows how her car was cornered by a sports utility vehicle. She was beaten by several men when she tried to flee. She was admitted to hospital with a concussion and fractures to her nose and face. It's the latest in a string of attacks on activists and opposition members amid weeks of anti-government protests. The Egyptian government has formally listed ousted President Mohamed Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood group a terrorist organization. The announcement made by Deputy Prime Minister Hossam Issa intensifies the government's crackdown on the group. It accuses the Brotherhood of carrying out a suicide bomb attack on a police station on Tuesday that killed 16 people. The Brotherhood denied that and condemned the attack. It's a major escalation in the army-backed government's campaign to suppress the Islamist movement that's been driven underground since Morsi's ouster in July. The Hong Kong Red Cross has joined efforts in the Philippines to help track down the missing loved ones of survivors of Super Typhoon Haiyan. Rani Santani has the story. Macau police have detected even more counterfeit 1,000 Hong Kong dollar banknotes. The 28 fake notes were found in 3 casinos operated by the same company. For the first time, some of the notes found were copies of the HSBC edition of the $1,000 bill. Until now, all counterfeit notes detected in Hong Kong and Macau had been copies of the 2003 Bank of China edition. The high quality of the counterfeit has prompted some local banks to stop accepting them at cash deposit machines. In sports, some big games in the NBA over Christmas, including a battle between 2 heavyweights, the Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Lakers. As Tony Sabine reports, other former NBA champs in action included the San Antonio Spurs and the Houston Rockets. And finally, bargain hunters were out in force for Boxing Day sales in London. Some shoppers queued up as early as 4 a.m. to get the best deals. And luxury department store Harrods entertainment and refreshments were laid out for shoppers. We now turn to the weather. Conditions in the territory should be fine and dry apart from the lingering haze. That's the news. Thanks for watching.